Welcome, everyone. Today I have the privilege of sitting down with Wyatt Black, the remarkable runner-up from Season 10 of the hit survival show Alone. As many of you know, Alone isn't just a show, it's an odyssey of resilience, courage, and the indomitable human spirit, where survival experts are thrust into the unforgiving embrace of nature, armed with nothing but 10 items, their wits, and willpower. Wyatt endured a grueling 64 days in the frigid wilderness of northern Saskatchewan, Canada, battling the elements and his own inner demons on the shores of Reindeer Lake. What emerged from this crucible was not only just a tale of survival, but a profound journey of self-discovery, redemption, and forgiveness. Wyatt's story transcends the confines of reality television, offering us a glimpse into the depths of the human soul. Today we dive into Wyatt's extraordinary adventure, exploring the strategies and tactics that propelled him through moments of triumph and tribulation. But more than just a survival manual, Wyatt's journey is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit and the boundless capacity for growth and transformation. So sit back and prepare to be enthralled as Wyatt regales us with the gripping accounts of his once-in-a-lifetime experience, sharing insights that extend far beyond the wilderness and into the very essence of what it means to be a human. Join me in welcoming Wyatt Black, a beacon of inspiration and a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Great to meet you.
Pleasure. How you doing, man?
I'm
Tell
great.
me if I need to move this or where it's good for you or
No, it looks great. I'm glad we could connect like this, so appreciate it.
yeah, no worries, man. I appreciate the opportunity.
I think like I said in my message to you, I think it's the only show on network TV that's worth watching.
I
So
I love it too. It's my since it come out, it's just been awesome.
yeah, it's amazing, and I'm sure it was a amazing experience, once in a lifetime thing. So
Unbelievable.
excited to talk to you and get more into the depths of even what we could learn from you on the show. So I'm sure there's a lot more to cover.
I'm sure there is. This is what my memory can remember. So I'll do my
So
best for you. I did I was able to do 700 hours of video with Alone and not say anything I didn't want put out. When they asked me, they said, "Is there anything you don't?" I said, "There's nothing." Because I was very conscientious about that. It was a healing process, and I didn't want to create any more hurt or pain for anybody.
yeah,
And there's ways of telling a story without going into details of that story. You know what I mean? And that's what I really tried to do on the show. The world kind of got a grasp of what I was like or who I was in a sense, but without having to give the fine details of what caused it, and uh, I think that was the right approach. Um,
well, I think you
I
just
was
hit the
happy.
nail on the head with storytelling is something I've come to understand more deeply recently, is that storytelling is the way that we portray ideas, and there's relevance in stories that people can relate to, and that's how you share information and understand people better, is through good storytelling.
Well, and we've done it through history, whether it comes from pictographs on caves or from books or the native people. Um, their story. That's what they did. They didn't have TVs. They didn't. So they sat in a circle around a fire and listened to the elders. And like everything else, stories get embellished or dramatized or whatever. But
Mhm.
that's the art of a good story. And
Yeah,
if it is a good story, it will remain through the circles forever. And that's what creates history. And
yeah,
we all want to be remembered. And hopefully it's for something good.
yeah, exactly. Well, I think we're on the same page there for sure. So I just want to give anyone that's listening a little context into the show. The show Alone, I think you were season 10. That's the last season, correct?
Yeah.
And
I was on season 10, runner up. It's a show that I've always wanted to be on. my wife, my kids, my family are like, why are you? And I was like, things weren't right. You're giving up a lot of things to go out and be able to do that. You have to be able to give everything and have a clear state of consciousness and peace that everything will be okay at home. Um, that being said, I never applied. You know, season 10 came along, and a friend of mine said to me, "Hey, they're taking a," and I went, "You know what? This might be the year. My business is running good. My wife's done school and working full time. My boys are old enough to look after themselves and help out around the house. My business has been running long enough. I got enough work. Why not? I'll throw an application in." I didn't realize it was going to be that kind of process where they had almost 43,000 people apply for the show.
Wow.
Just staggering numbers. Yeah, when they told me that, I was like, "Are you kidding?" And you picked me, but um,
Well,
it
and this
started off.
isn't a normal show. I mean, I think the last several years, for sure, the participants are all experts in the field of survival. A lot of them have businesses that teach primitive survival skills, indigenous techniques, and I know you grew up with a lot of experience, and I'm sure you've studied and honed those skills even further as an adult in hunting and fishing and everything that's involved bushcraft. So it's not like they're just taking novice people out into the woods. I mean, I've been through survival school in the military, SEER school, but I I didn't grow up that way. I don't have those skills to be able to do what you guys do. So I just want to put that context out there for people that these are not untrained, Joe Schmoes that think they can go survive in these harsh environments for 60, 70 plus days. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and they put you through everything, like the psychological test, the skills test. Like even when you go through the whole application process, their first two are paper applications. Um, if you catch their interest and in the first one, they'll send you a second one. When you do the second one, if you've maintained their interest, they start with just a phone call. It's about half hour to an hour long. If you're long-winded like me, maybe a little longer, but uh, and then if you get through that, they do a Skype video with you and just kind of see how you are with the camera, and what have you. Uh, they whittle it down to 100 people. And when they get down to 100 people, um, those 100 do a video submission. So you go out into the bush in your familiar territories and just kind of film yourself doing simple bushcraft, build a shelter, how to run a trap line, how to shoot a bow, tie a gill net, just whatever you want to do that you think they will appreciate and acknowledge. Out of that 100, they take 24 of us and put you in a boot camp. Because of COVID, it was a virtual boot camp. Where we met other contestants. Jordan Jonas was on there with us, and Michelle was on, and Coulter was on. So it was cool to get to talk to those people, even if you didn't get selected. It was,
Mhm.
and it
So
was
that was all the way back
Canada.
in 2020. That's a long
Yeah,
process.
yeah, I know, right? And it was Canada Day long weekend on the Friday, and I'd been through the boot camp, and I'm just chomping at the bit. And Friday afternoon, the phone rings, and I knew it was my casting director, and she says, "How are you today?" And I said, "You're going to tell me that." And she says, "You've been selected," and I was just over the top. That in itself was just a great accomplishment. So, the process is long, but it's worthwhile. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome,
Yeah.
and everybody
So,
on the show, from the cooks to the casting to everybody was fantastic. Like it's a very professionally well-rounded organization. Like I have nothing but the highest praise.
well, it sounds like you had a great experience and you didn't have any issues with editing liberties or anything like that, or
No, there was a couple things but we were aware of that, and it wasn't. You know, everybody has to realize it is television,
yeah.
but they portrayed me, and from what I've talked to the other participants, we were all happy with the way we were portrayed. Of course, there was certain things that they could have left out or they could have added. That there always will be. But for the most part, everybody was happy and felt that they were represented properly. And I know I certainly was. And any little things that they changed or whatever, uh, it was all just for the show. Everybody kept asking me through the show because of their voiceover and their commercials. So when do you see the bear? When do you see the bear? And
Oh,
I never seen a bear, but they showed the bear and then you hear my voice in the background go, game on. And it was like
uh,
everybody thought, oh, I'm getting the bear. Didn't
yeah,
happen, didn't see
you
one.
actually
But
saw very little game, right?
I did. I didn't even see tracks. It was I was just in one of those areas where uh I didn't have the big game. There was more of a wintering area, and they just weren't around. I had decent small game. It was sparse, but it was there. You just had to work for it.
Yeah. Um, so you brought 10 items, right? You're allowed 10 items.
Yeah,
Can you talk
yeah.
about those and maybe some things that you didn't bring that you thought about, or that you did bring
The
that you
only
shouldn't have?
thing that I would, the only thing that I would ever change would be I would have taken salt. Um, Salt ultimately ended up being what took me out. I was dehydrating just every day. I don't know what day it really started affecting me. I like to go to day 55, where that was where I could really feel my body starting to weaken, change, just not your normal feeling. Um, but my tissues and stuff were breaking down. My urine was like a very bright orange color and stuff. I couldn't get warm. I had studied the area, and there was numerous plants that aquatic plants and colt's foot, things like that had sodium in it. And I thought that was going to be available to me.
Yeah.
That being said, that's why I didn't have any moose or caribou or anything around my area either, because they need it as much as we do.
Yeah.
And I had none of those plants. So uh, it was the one thing that, even though didn't, I knew I needed it, but I thought, I'll find it. Well, I didn't. And uh, ultimately, it was the beginning of the end, if you want to say. And uh, I don't know what I'd switch out for it though. I I utilized everything. Like that's the one thing. I just don't know what I would switch out.
That was one thing that was interesting to me. Not just your season, but other seasons. A guy got a moose, and you got quite a bit of food compared to a lot of the other contestants. But even it's apparent that even with that, you're not getting all the nutrients that you need, all the fat that you need to thrive. You're still just surviving, and your body is basically withering away without the essential nutrients and fats that you're not able to get with just.
Exactly. And pretty much all of us out there utilize every part of the animal or fish or whatever it is. We know that the fat storage is in the organs, and we know leave the skin on your birds and leave the skin on your fish and eat the eggs and all the things that what we consider common knowledge. The average person may not, but we do.
Mm,
And even knowing all those and utilizing all those, it's still not enough. I figured I ate somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 pounds of fish. I ate 12 red squirrels, 9 grouse, 2
oh,
pine marten, about 10 pounds of mushrooms, and about 10, 12 quarts of berries. That's over 3 pounds of food a day. I still lost 1.13 pounds a day,
mhm,
even with all that. So,
mhm,
uh, but that's part of the game. And Alan and I, we both did very well on the fishing.
mhm.
Uh, it was kind of the advantage of being familiar with the species of Reindeer Lake.
Hmm.
grayling. Well, I never caught one, and it just shows you like I've never fished for them in my life, and I was hoping to catch one but didn't. Uh, Apparently, they're not that tasty and they're not that big either. So it's not a terrible loss, but it just shows you how the knowledge, Alan and I, we knew kind of the style of lures to make. And when we were throwing them out, we were letting them sink and get down into the plane. They, but we knew how to get down into that target zone of where the fish were. And that's something that Mikey, for example, he grew up in Alabama or Georgia.
Yeah.
He'd never seen a lake trout or a northern pike. He's a bass and bluegill and catfish fisherman.
Hmm.
So things are and that's where coming into knowledge comes really into play, of learning your area. I had that bonus. I still had to learn a lot about the plants and the mushrooms and the berries and uh, basically a terrain I'd never been to, but I did have the fortune of being familiar with boreal forest.
Did you grow up in a similar environment?
Yeah, similar but different. But I've traveled to that type of area in northern Ontario, northwestern Ontario, moose hunting and fishing trips and things like that throughout my whole life. So I'm pretty familiar with that type of setting.
What else did you do to prepare beside, you studied the terrain, the animals, the plants?
Read, read. This is one of the books I had. I had many, but all these little highlights in there. Those are all the different plants and stuff, herbal remedies and teas, and anything you can imagine. And that's what I was really focusing on. My bushcraft skills, we all pretty much know those.
Mhm.
So it was just a case of try and brush up on the things we don't know. Try and think, the things that are native to the land that will be of benefit to us.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, well, your season, you guys there's been other seasons where I think most all the participants have basically gotten no food. But
Yeah, and there's reasons for that. One thing that a lot of people, they're not confident enough in their area, their abilities to travel and really utilize the area. They give you a pretty big chunk of land. It's what they figure about 5 square miles,
okay.
and that's a lot of acres. And when you don't have a compass and you don't have anybody to help you, it's intimidating. You know, Mikey, they said uh, um, they showed him being lost there for a bit.
Hmm.
And okay, I go back to, well, we weren't really lost. We just didn't know where we were. And we know where, once we get there and familiarize our area. That day that Mikey was lost, there was no sun. The sun had gone behind the clouds. You're out on a walk. You haven't marked your trail. Well, we don't have the means to mark our trail. We're not going to go scaving trees and doing things like that. So when the sun went behind the clouds on him, he lost all sense of direction. Now, he had a pretty good idea and all the rest of it. But if you don't have that kind of calmness and comfort in traveling through unknown territories with basically no um, landmarks, because none of us have ever been there. So we don't know that, oh, yeah, we just go down by the cedar swamp, past the bald rock, and then we're back out on the lakeshore.
Hmm.
You have to familiarize yourself with that. Well, there's so many other things to do, like procuring food, like procuring firewood, building a shelter, on and on and on,
Hmm.
that your travel radius doesn't seem very big. I had a little different um, strategy, and my strategy was I was just going to go up the lake shore the one day because I knew I was going to be on water. And I was just going to go up that shoreline that one day and just pay attention to everything, what the trees look like, what the rocks look like, what the bays look like, and what have you. Once I'd done that, I went back in the bush just about 40 yards and just come back the exact same way I came, just 40 yards in the bush further. So I
Hmm.
could see what kind of tracks were there, what kind of game trails and stuff. And then the next day, I went the other way. And that worked out really good to tell me that I didn't have anything in my area. It didn't take me long to figure out there's no moose here, there's no bears here, there's no. So
Mm,
I just, as soon as I realized that, I changed my whole game plan. And that's the one thing that I think is the most required in a place, in a show like Alone, is to have adaptability. My whole thing, when I was told I was going to northern Saskatchewan, Reindeer Lake, I was just like, Yahoo! I'm going to shoot a bear. I'm going to shoot a moose, one or the other. Like I bow hunt moose all the time. I bear hunt all the time, and I'm quite confident in my abilities. Well, that went out the window really quick. So we just
yeah.
turned and went fishing. And I fished my whole life too. I love fishing and all the rest of it, and I did well at it. I was blessed with a good fishing area, but traveled around a lot too. I moved my gill net 9 different times.
Oh,
People
really?
don't, yeah, like
Yeah.
it doesn't show,
Yeah.
but I also caught some of my biggest fish in the gill net.
Yeah.
Um, I also targeted those bigger fish, finding different rock outcrops and different point structures at edges of weed beds, knowing that those big fish should be traveling through those corridors. You
Hmm.
know, I think I got, I think I got 11 fish in my gill netters. I got two
Some huge,
whitefish,
huge perch, right? Or
the
not,
pike,
pikes.
northern
Yeah.
pike. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got three of them that were over 40 inches.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They were
they were,
huge.
20 to 25 pound fish. They were beautiful.
Yeah, so you talked about all the food you did get and still losing the weight and I've done my fair share of become really interested in fasting because of this program really, but like I said, I've gone through survival school. I've done 5 days without food and then I've intentionally done, 3 days fasting here and there and I I'm actually doing a lot of 24-hour fasts through the month of March.
Are you?
So
I've never done it, and I
really,
still haven't done it. I love food too much. Just
well,
I
seems to be a mystery in our culture now about losing weight, and there's factors and other nuances, but it's essentially calories in, calories out, and it's
Yeah.
just calorie deficient. You will lose weight, and I would put money on the fact that you can lose it much faster than you can even put it on, even if you're trying.
Oh yeah, and there's certain people that can do things a certain way, and like Juan Pablo, he won season 9, I think it was.
Yes, and that was his strategy.
Right, and I won't take anything away from the man because he won. He set himself a goal. He set himself a way of achieving that goal, and he did it. So hats off to him. But I could never do that. They would have put me in a weight room when I come back because I just could not live that. Part of
Did you
my demise.
intentionally do you intentionally put on weight before the show?
Yeah, it was the heaviest I've ever been in my life. I walked in at 240.
Mm.
Uh, that I'm 6'1", so it's not it was not an outrageous weight, but it was uncomfortable weight. I noticed it in my breathing. I noticed it in my knees. Just
Oh yeah,
yeah. I
yeah.
hope to never be that big again. Unless they
What?
ask me to go back. Because if they ask me to go back for a redemption, I'd probably put the weight back on.
Well, I mean, all the people have done well in the last several seasons have started at least putting on weight, not necessarily having the strategy of starving themselves, but
Yeah,
you
and
know,
not a lot of. There's been a couple guys like Clay Hayes and Jordan Jonas, winners of season 7 and 8, I believe, and one. They weren't big guys. They didn't put on a lot of extra weight.
mhm.
Um, I assume they put on a bit, but they were pretty slender, fit guys. But they also they live that rough, rugged lifestyle all the time, and they're very knowledgeable men.
But still, plenty have been taken out medically because they just couldn't keep enough weight on to
Oh
be
yeah, and
safe, healthy.
Alan and I weren't far away from it.
Yeah.
We Alan and I are pretty much the same in size. I think he went in at 252 or something. He's
Yeah.
a little taller than me and a little better physical condition, but we're essentially the same size of men. After the show aired and he was talking about it, uh, they said that Alan's now lost 32 pounds or whatever it was. And he texted me the next morning. He goes, "Yeah, can you believe that?" He says, "I'm not even down to my regular weight yet." So, they made
Oh,
it
really?
sound like, but at that point, he was still like 8 pounds above his regular weight, even though he'd lost 32 pounds. So,
How much did you lose total?
74.
Wow.
I walked out of there at 166 pounds. It was the lightest I've been since high school. So it was,
What do you normally walk around at?
I normally walk around 220.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a quite the difference there.
Oh yeah, it was, I don't want to be that weight again either, but
I bet. Yeah, so there's a term I like called emotional acceleration. So acceleration you feel, right? So when you're in a car and you accelerate, you feel that. When you turn a corner, that's angular acceleration, you feel that. So I know that you go through highs and lows all the time while you're out there. You're fishing, you catch a fish, you're on a high, and then the next second you lose a lure and you're hit a low. So can you kind of talk about what that means to you and some of the situations where you really felt those highs and lows quickly and
the first one was uh, day five. Day five, I'm going down to my gill net, and I can see that white belly of that bike, and it was just like this overwhelming emotion. I hadn't eaten in the 4 previous days, a handful of berries here and there, but I got there and I was getting my shelter, a temporary shelter set up. I was getting, a little bit of firewood, making sure my water, checking my area, learning a bit about it, trying to tie gill nets, starting on my fishing rod and reel and what have you. So I hadn't, like I said, I was on day five, and they put it out on ad where I'm doing my happy dance, and I was absolutely over the top, like just, and a variety of emotions. There was the excitement of having the fish, the relief of having the fish, because we're all have a bit of an ego to where, and none of us were there to not do well.
hmm,
We were going to give her. So when when I caught that fish, it gave me that, oh my God. I just, it was just like,
I earned myself another so many days
yeah,
as I'm
well,
sure
that
you're
was
thinking.
that. I think that fish was about 7 or 8 pounds. It was a good sized fish, and then it gave me an easy, week plus whatever, week of eating.
Hmm.
Um, Lows, well, yeah, there was them too. Every lure I lost. When I lost the gold hellfire, that was just that fit. That lure I had caught 9 fish on already. I'd
Hmm.
caught 9 lake trout. Uh, it was proven to work. And I had lost fish too. I had had other strikes on. You don't catch every one that you get
Yeah.
a hit on. So when I lost that lure, I say it a lot. I've lost probably thousands of lures in my lifetime. I have never been deflated like I was when I lost
That one hit
it. It was
hard.
just, oh, I can't even describe it. Like it was just, but what do you do? Well, I'm not here to sit and whine and complain about things. So you get your knife out, you go find yourself another piece of driftwood, and you start carving.
Mm.
Um, it took me probably 3 to 4 hours to make a lure. It was not every,
Can't
just
go to the
drilling a little
store,
hole
can't
through.
yeah.
Yeah, and it can't. Uh, I don't want to say it. You just can't go and get another one. So and you want everything done right for numerous reasons. You only have a certain amount of hooks. So you can't be losing those hooks because you cut a corner on making your lure or something like that.
Mhm.
So and because they were so time consuming, there was only after I'd been there a while, I had more than one. You know, because when I lost the gold hellfire, first thing I want to do is get another one, get fishing again. You know, Um, so those were my biggest highs and lows, if you want to say. Losing those two fish I had in the
In the pond or the holding pond.
yeah, and you see that one, I understand why they didn't tell the whole story on it, because it's all about the show. Uh, and I knew better. I talked the whole time through, oh, this is a bad, but they'll be all right. I talked myself into it. What people don't realize is that we had just spent over 80 hours in our shelter. We had winds that were rain. It was coming sideways. The trees were just, one night I'm laying there and it's pitch black. I go, I'm moving. Why am I moving? And I can't see nothing, but I feel like I ate some bad mushrooms. What's going on here?
Mm.
Two trees that I had my ridgepole lashed between were bending with the wind, and because there was so little soil there, it was picking up the whole root mass in the moss and
Yeah, you
tilting
feel
me and then
that.
setting me back down. So for 80 hours, I never slept. It was like laying on the tarmac of an airport runway, and 747s going right above your head all day, all night. Like, it was just so loud with that wind on that point. I burnt every stick of firewood I had. I burnt just everything. I had one piece of fish left for dinner that night. I go down, the weather broke, and I just had to get out of my shelter. It was late in the evening. I'm like, I gotta go. And I go fishing, I catch two. Now I'm thinking, okay, I got dinner for tonight, but I've got no firewood to smoke this fish. I got no energy to smoke, to even stay awake, let alone to go and cut the fire. And
Hmm.
literally talk myself into just, they'll be all right. I'd watch Britt do the same thing and lose them on a previous season. And I knew everything about it was wrong, but I just had to do it. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the strength, and that cost me. I didn't eat for the next 4 days because of that mistake.
And what people, I think people don't realize is that sleep is a necessity even higher than
Oh,
food, right?
yeah, it's
You can't go more than 11 days without sleep. You'll literally die, where you can go much
exactly.
longer without food. And so it is a necessity. I mean, even getting one bad night of sleep is a detriment, but to go through something like that, like you explained, is I can understand why you made
Yeah,
those decisions.
it just made you feel terrible in your whole body. But it's the same thing. As soon as I went down and caught those two fish, back, oh, I'm on a high. And then I go and get down in the morning and they're gone. And it's like, oh, you know, I didn't even want to film that because I was so disgusted with myself. It's like,
What about the injury to your arm? You basically got a stick in your arm, a piece of wood, and you
so
thought you got it all out, and it got infected, and you didn't get it all out. So can you talk about that?
yeah, what happened was I was so when I was limbing all the poles for my shelter and what have you, I would limb them with my axe as high as up as I could reach because it was a lot easier than bending down on the ground, and they were nice and straight and secure and all the rest of it. So I'd limb them and then as high as I could reach and cut, then I'd cut them down. There was a little cluster of black spruce there, and I wasn't really worried about it, and I just attention to detail. Pay attention. When that's the one thing about survival and slow and steady. I talked about it all the time. Slow and steady wins the race. Be diligent. Everything you do. I knew that, and I just go into this clump of trees and I just started going like this. And next thing you know, I slipped down with the axe and I drove two pieces right into my forearm here, and it smarted. I knew I'd hit myself good, and I set the axe down. Oh yeah, and I grab the one piece and I pull it out. And it's about 3/4 of an inch long and about 3/16. I measured them with my Leatherman, and then I pulled the other one out. I'm like, oh yeah, and it just started swelling immediately. It was an old, dirty, been broke off for years. God knows what had all crawled over it and rained on it and all the rest of it. It didn't take long to start infecting, and I knew it was bad, and I just said, all right. I'm not showing them this. There's no way I'm showing them this. They're going to pull me. And I was just like, and so I just started cleaning it the best I could, and it started getting a lot better for it was probably, the size of a softball, around and sticking, no, probably 2 inches out of my arm. Like, it was a great big mass. And I could just squeeze it like that, and the pus would just literally go streaming out of it. I was taking Labrador tea and the black spruce needles and the pitch, boiling up this, antiseptic, and I was clean it every day, 4 or 5 times, like just every chance. If I felt it getting a little bit hotter, I'd clean it. And then I because I was cutting so many trees, I had all this fresh pitch oozing out of all the stumps that I cut the fresh trees down. A lot of people don't realize, like, virtually all your coniferous trees that produce a sap, that's what it is. It's a healing agent to heal the wound on the tree. So if you go and you cut a branch off, it's going to start, so it'll heal over. Well, it essentially does the same for us. So as soon as I get done cleaning it, I just go over and I just lather it with this pitch, and then just wrap it up
Mm-hmm.
again until the next time. And I was doing, and the water I was using, I was boiling.
Mm-hmm.
It was as sterile as you could get. I think it was day 10. They were coming out for a medical check and what have you. I just, or no, it wasn't a medical check. It was a camera check. And they were coming and they would take all our batteries and take all our SD cards and what have you. So I figured, oh, I better tell them now. Well, the next day they sent the doctor out, and doctor come out and let me see it. And I showed him, and I'm squeezing it and he's squeezing it. And he says, okay, I want to see how you're cleaning this. And I showed him and all the rest of it. And at the end of it, he said, I couldn't have done it any better myself. It was, and
So that
I
was a
believe that was
relief.
day 10. It was still pretty swollen, but it wasn't, the red was going down, all the rest of it. Obviously healing, and enough that I was comfortable enough to show them. Well, after them, give me a little bit of grief for, hey guys, like, if we had to pull you for that, where's the story? We need the story. So I was like, oh, sorry, but I
Yeah.
was kind of being selfish. Well, day 14, I'm sitting there and I'm cleaning it like I would. I maintain cleaning it. And I go, holy, I grabbed my Leatherman, I pulled that out. It was like, oh, the relief. But that piece I pulled out the second time was another 3/4 inch. And I only had the 2 holes. That means the one went an inch and a half straight into my forearm, and it
Mm.
broke off in my arm when I was pulling it out.
And through the
Uh,
healing process, it helped push it out.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So just like any other sliver you get, it's just that one was just in so deep it took 2 weeks to push it out.
Did that bring you down at all? I mean, that could be a reason to go home, but
No,
I know you were
no, it
committed to
didn't. It
staying.
actually, when it came out, it was almost like having an orgasm. It was like the relief that my whole, I can't even describe how it was. Just like all the pressure and everything that had been in there for 2 weeks just all of a sudden disappeared. It was,
Yeah.
I, because it was still in there, there was obviously a degree of discomfort every time you moved it, every time, you still had to
Mhm.
work, and, right in the muscle of your forearm. So, it's getting a lot of bending around.
Yeah. So let's talk about day 34. So I'm someone that believes, we're one with nature, and day 34 you woke up and you said you felt something different, and you were more aware of your connection with nature. Can you talk about that and how you felt and what that means to you?
Well, say it'll be a day I remember the rest of my life. Um, I would have been satisfied if they hadn't shown anything else other than day 34 to me. What they showed gave the gist of what that day was like, but that's all it was just a light dusting of what it was like. That night, it was so calm, and so black that you strained to try and hear something. There was no bugs, there was no breeze, there was just nothing. and you couldn't see this, like that's how dark it was. I
Hmm.
remember saying, I wonder if this is what Simon and Garfunkel meant when they wrote The Sound of Silence. Like it was so quiet, it was deafening. And I laid there. And at that time, I hadn't shot a grouse yet. I hadn't shot a squirrel yet. I'd been doing okay with the fishing, but I was making mistakes. And once I'd woke up, I couldn't fall back asleep. And I figured it was somewhere around between 3 and 4 in the morning. And I just laid there. And the only noise was the thoughts in my head and ways I could do things a little different. I remember I shot a grouse and I was using these big blunt heads, and it looked like somebody just exploded a pillow in the air. And that grouse fell to about 1.5 feet, 2 feet off the ground and then just flew away. And I was just disgusted. Like I was just devastated. So I took those and I trimmed that right down to make it that I would have a penetrating head instead of just a blunt, but not penetrate so much that it's going to go blowing right through it and I'm going to lose my arrow. I didn't want to use my broadheads and slice all the entrails and what have you in that grouse. So I was being very cautious and diligent about why and how I was doing things. And everything was seeming to fall into place. And that the sun rose that day and it just had this warming sensation to it. You just ever wake up and feel good and maybe not know why. And I was sure that everything was going to go right that day just because of that. But no matter what, I knew it was going to be different. And I'm sure glad it wasn't bad, because things could go as bad out there just as quickly as they can go good. And I sat and I talked to the camera and I had my cup of berry tea in the morning and I went down. The lake was just calm. It was my first couple casts. I had a nice follow up and then bang, I get like a nice 6, 7 pound lake trout. And they didn't show it, but I go up there camera and I'm being cocky and I'm showing my lure and oh yeah, this one works too. If you're coming to Reindeer Lake and you're a nice guy, I'll make you a lure if you ask nicely. But if you're an asshole, well, not a chance. And I'm just being a cocky. I turn around and I go, and the first cast, my line wraps around my lure, snaps, and off she goes. And I'm like, I didn't just. And then I start on and I'm like, have my little meltdown. And then I laugh. And I talk about how that's the way it seemed to be with my whole journey out there already was you'd go up and you'd go down and you'd go up and you'd go down. It was at that point, I think a lot that has to do with it, Ryan, is I healing process had started. I was becoming comfortable with my own thoughts. I was starting to understand and see reason in things that had happened throughout my life. I was, and I felt that Mother Nature done that intentionally. She was doing her part to heal me, and she, you know, uh, meeting me halfway. That's and uh, I don't know. It's I think that had a lot to do with it. That uh, for the first time in a long time, I was starting to feel good about myself. Um, I've always been a happy person. At one point, I talked about I wish the world could see me as the father I am rather than the man I've been. Um,
Mhm.
that is one of the most true statements I've ever made in my life. I really pride myself on being not only a caring and giving father, but a understanding and patient. And the best thing that I could ever give my kids was my time. And I still love spending every moment I can. They are the joy of my life. Um, I didn't feel that way about myself, and for a lot of false reasons. Um, I'm not a person to go lay on a couch, talk to a shrink, and laying out there. I had no drugs. I had no alcohol. I had no outside influence. It was me and the truth, and there was nowhere to hide from it. So I had to listen to it. And I dissected a lot of things in my life. A lot of things I'd done wrong that I would have just done differently. So that was all part of that day. It, that feeling I talk about was an inner peace, and when I lost that lure, it was just like, yeah, I had my little meltdown and, but I didn't have a low, it was almost like it was still maintaining the high. And that's why I had that outburst was,
And you were able to laugh at it instead of
yeah, yeah. And then I grabbed and it was like, I'm not going to sit here and cry about it. Let's get up and go. And I grabbed my bow and I hang that fish in a tree and I go and bang, there's my first grouse. And I actually shot 2 grouse out. And then I go and then I shoot a red squirrel. And I'm like, this is incredible. And I didn't really go hunting small game, but my gill net was so far away that I would plan routes to go to my gill net wherever I placed it and use that as my hunting excursion. I wasn't really hunting. I was just carrying my bow going to check my gill net, and took my little pot. And if I found a patch of berries, I'd fill it up. And so after I'd shot that red squirrel and I've got my 2 grouse, I know I've got my big trout hanging back. I had got the big pike in the gill net the day previous, so it had only halfways got smoked. So I wanted to put it back on my smoker, and I'm like, I knew it was like if I'm talking to the camera, and I go, of course there's going to be something in my gill net. This is my gift day. The land is gifting me. The land is accepting, and that's how I felt. Um, you have to have a right to be places, and Mother Nature will only put up with so much, but she can give you everything. There's a great poem um, written by Robert Service called "The Law of the Yukon," and if you ever get a chance to read it, I suggest it to everybody. And it's basically about the land of the Yukon talking to all these misfits and failures, and how she's going to trample them in her snow and drown them in her rivers and blind them with her winds. But yet the chosen ones, she's going to take to her bosom and glutton with her meat and fill with the riches of her golds and what have you. And it's just a
Mhm.
fabulous, it's listening to the land speak. And
And
that's
you
what
lived that poem.
I live that. Yeah. And not just lived it through my eyes, but lived it through my soul. Like it encompassed my whole being. It was just the truth, like that's, and um, I was talking about that. Yeah, of course I'm going to have some. And I go up there and I got my first whitefish. And it was just like, and it seemed like everything triggered stories out there, stories of my life. That was one of the biggest things, uh, that whitefish reminded me of my great grandmother. That was her favorite fish to eat. My mother would give my dad an extra day to go fishing if we were going to my great grandmother's, just so he could bring her a whitefish because she meant that much to my mother. And so that fish triggered those memories. And that whole day, those grouse, they were that. I, as I'm plucking them, I'm talking about my grandmother, a different one, not my great grandmother, my grandmother. And one of the oldest stories, she was a court stenographer in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, business lady, and she met my grandfather in the World War. And they'd only known each other 2 weeks and got married and spent almost 64 years together.
Mhm.
And like I said, my grandmother, she worked as a lawyer. She was a court stenographer, or not as a lawyer, as a lawyer's assistant. And she talked to me about how she first moved to the farm with granddad. And it took every penny they had to buy my great grandfather's farm. And chickens were a quick cash crop. So this was long before electricity and all the rest of it. So grandpa brought home 100 chicks, and they grew these chicks and they're ready for market. Oh, grandpa hauls grandma out to the barn, and this time they have no kids or anything. My dad was only about 2. And grandma said my fingers and thumbs were just raw and bleeding from picking so many. And I'm plucking the feathers out of them, and your grandfather's cleaning them. We finished that 100 chicken, got them loaded on the back of the wagon. And she says, I looked at your grandfather. She says, if you bring another chicken back to this farm, I'm leaving. And he just chuckled the way he always did. Off he went, and he came back from the market, and he had 200 chicks with him. And she said she knew right there that what her life was going to be like, you know. And I told that story sitting there. And that was part of my, you know, I told all these stories because that lake trout, that grouse, that squirrel, that whitefish, they they all represented uh, and the, they were all gifts to me. So yeah, finished that, and I got my smoker, and I've got that big lake trout, and I've got that big pike, and I've got that whitefish, and I've got those two grouse, and I've got the red squirrel on it. It's just like a smorgasbord. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna eat tonight. Like this is, you know, I've been reluctantly going through my food on a pretty regimented basis, you know, conserving and being sure. But tonight I'm gonna eat. I've earned it, you know, and I just, like I said, everything in my soul felt so good. And that night, I sat there by the fire and just felt like a bird. And every every star in the sky come out that night. The Northern Lights dance for me. It was perfect. You know, it was
That's
just,
beautiful.
you know, and it's something that probably never see again, but uh, it'll be probably one of my most treasured stories for the rest of my life.
Thank you for sharing. um, would you describe that feeling, what you experienced, as love?
Oh, immensely. Uh, I I call her Mother Nature for a reason. Uh, it just seems fitting. Uh, you know, I was I'm blessed with. Uh, there's just absolutely nothing I would ask for more than what my mother was to me, is to me.
Mm.
Uh, I was extremely blessed with that. Uh, so uh, comparing nature to my mother, just a great compliment.
Did that stay with you, or are you able to maintain
Oh
that?
yeah, it was to a degree. It's always been with me. You know, I love the woods. I love the lakes. I love the rivers. You know, I always find something good about it, whether it's catching a fish or picking a mushroom or a berry or, you know, hunting. Just, you know, like sitting there watching things, what have you, and listening to things. And it's, it rejuvenates the soul. I find it just refreshing on so many levels. And um, never in my life have I been able to experience it alone like I did. You know, I go and I sit in my tree stand from dark to light. I go and I hunt for 2 or 3 days by myself. But usually I got someone around to share it. Kids, my grandfather, my father, my brother, you know, somebody. Out there I didn't. And you get a whole different appreciation as long as you're willing to listen. I um I didn't I don't know, I didn't want to complain out there. There's no room for it, you know? I don't know if you noticed how blue my eyes were. And it was just because I was so happy. Like I was truly happy out
Mm.
there. And
Content.
yeah. And the one thing I did, Ryan, was um they ask you if you want, if something happens at home, do you want to know about it? You know? Because if you say yes, they're gonna tell you. And a lot of people go, no, no, I don't want to know. Where I was like the opposite. I was like, yes, I want to know. And it gave me that peace of mind just to know that if there's something serious, I'm going to know about it.
Mm.
So if I haven't heard anything, everything's okay at home and I'm good. And I would suggest that to any participant. And I said, well, my wife goes, how do I know? I said, if you have any question of whether I should be contacted about it, ask my dad. He'll tell you. Like if my dog got hit by a car, well, I'm not going to change it. He knows I'm going to do the right things and, pay the vet bills and what have you. And he'll look after that. I don't need to leave the opportunity of a lifetime for that, so I had that peace of mind. And that allowed me to be comfortable and content out there. I didn't have that nagging worry. Are my kids okay? Is my wife okay? I missed them, right? I missed everybody. But I was like, look at all, I can't wait to tell someone. I can't wait to tell someone,
Did you look
and
forward to the med checks, the camera checks for the human interaction,
no,
or
because there
was
was none.
oh
It was almost torturous in the fact because you're chomping for it and they won't tell you nothing. Like they're covering up the scales, they're covering up your blood pressure. They won't tell you who won the World Series. They won't, it's just
oh,
like
so they're not even like
it's all
interacting with
business.
you? Uh,
No, they're not interacting with you at all. Like bring me a talk bar or something, None of that. So it was kind of more of a frustrating thing because all you want to do is talk. They had the one guy, Jeff Rodriguez, one of the directors or whatever you want to call producers out there. He was a big New York Yankees fan. Well, I'm a Blue Jays fan, and I'm like, so, well, come on, throw me a ball. Can't do it. And it was like, so it was more of a torment than anything having them come out there.
that's funny. I thought they would have a little bit more interaction, but yeah, I
They're not
know.
allowed, right? Because
Yeah,
it's like they can't tell you how things are at home, nothing. So I guess just to stay in the general rules of the game, they just don't tell anybody anything.
yeah. So on the show, you talked a lot about alcohol use. In our conversation, you've alluded to the therapy that you experienced out there, and I have experience with numbing pain and limiting beliefs, and I'm sure that you gained a lot more insight into your limiting beliefs and where that pain came from. I like the question, why the pain, not why the addiction, because we all have things that we repress, whether it's with alcohol or drugs or eating or overworking, or some things are healthier outlets than others. But can you just dive a little deeper into what that means to you, what you learned about yourself out there?
I learned all I was doing was making excuses. Um, you know, that was the one thing that it let me realize, I dwelled a lot on negatives. Kind of the poor me card, if you want to say, and I was a kid, I'm not, but I started drinking at a very young age and it just got worse and worse. Never did me any good, but I had the attitude where this is my problem, not yours. Didn't really look at the problems it was causing for my kids, my wife, my marriage, numerous other factors. I just didn't care. Um, and I didn't have the confidence in myself to say, I don't need this. I just, I used it as a crutch, as an excuse, and all just due to myself being weak in a sense, and not just dealing things. And one of the biggest things is I always blame my dad for everything that was bad. I blame dad. And being out there, um, I was reminded of all the good things that I had forgot because I dwelled on all the negative things. Not every father and son relationship. Um, Ours was far from it, but it had many blessings and it had many teachings, both good and bad. We learned from our mistakes too. But as I was out there, those started becoming a reality. I was understanding things from his point of view too. Now being a father, uh, being reminded of all the things he did teach. Um, Mere fact that I was out there because of everything he prepared me for in life. Um, the knowledge that he gave me, whether it be directly or indirectly, I had never looked at it. I just looked at it, and I was just making every bit of my own problems worse. And that made it harder for me to even have a relationship for him because he's going, "What are you doing, buddy?" Like, you know better
Mhm.
than that. And I did. And a lot of the things I did were probably just to piss him off, and it made things worse for me. That was,
Mhm.
it was just, but I was a dumb kid. And that's what I said that on the show as well, that in today's world, um, knowing what I know now, uh, I, I would take that little kid aside and try and show him a different path. Try and, you know, I can't change the past, I can change the future. And, you know, I was pretty overwhelmed by the amount of letters I got from people that I resonated with their addictions and their struggles and I feel for every one of them
Mhm.
because a lot of them, unlike me, know their reasons. I I almost looked for excuses to be the way I was rather than justify the way I don't even know how to say it. Um, but the biggest thing was I was creating myself more hurt than anything, and the ones that I loved the most were getting the repercussions of it. And uh, like I said, there was no good that came out of it. I thought there was, I I made that excuse, but there was nothing, and that's where the clarity of being in a place like Reindeer Lake and being at one with nature and let her show you the path, you know, it's there. It's just whether we can find it through all the trees or not.
And I find that what you focus on, like you talked about the negativity is what you actually bring into your life. Um, and also the I think you gained an appreciation for the challenges that your dad did bring you. Not that they were good experiences when you were young, but those are the things that you learned the most from in the long run.
Right. Well, and that's the thing I was saying. Like when I was young, I didn't realize all the good things that he was doing either. And it took me, I, I was thinking about things that I thought I'd forgot about, you know,
Mhm.
but I hadn't. And now it was almost like they were to me, given back to me at a time where I could appreciate and I could utilize them for a greater good, and I, I, and I was in a state of mind and a state of spirit, if you want to say, to be able to accept it, appreciate it, and utilize it. So, like I said, it was all part of the healing. And, it's since I've come back, those memories are under the ice in Reindeer Lake. Like,
Mm.
I used to talk about them all the time. Anybody to hear, not anymore. They're gone. I, it's done. They've been,
They don't
and
hold the significance that they once did for you, right?
they hold nothing. They hold nothing. They're irrelevant. And, you know, I actually, when I come back, that was one of the things was I set a lot of those things straight with people I had hurt by being the way I was, and a lot of that way was being selfish and just not caring about who got hurt in the ways. So
Mhm.
no, I was very blessed to have that opportunity, and that's the one. You know, there's no amount of money in this world that can give me what the experience of alone gave me. There's just none.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you experienced that and that you were able to forgive yourself, right? And you mentioned acceptance. Would you say acceptance is a major part of that self-forgiveness?
Acceptance is key to everything. I talk about it all the time. Um, if you have expectations, will be disappointed. The key to life is, can I accept it or not? And accepting something doesn't mean you have to like it. I can accept that you're this way. Can you accept that I'm this way? And if that's the case, we can work. But if I can't accept you, I can never change you. You can never change me. That is something we have to do on our own. So until this person changes, I can't accept that. Well, that's the problem in so many relationships is we base it on false pretense. We don't, we spend our thing trying to impress the other person, trying strut our feathers and what have you. And, but we don't really tell who we are. And we let somebody fall in love with us under a false pretense. And in a lot of cases, they're allowing the same.
Mm.
But by being truly honest, you've given that person and yourself a fair opportunity to have something real, but in order to do that, at first you have to be truthful to yourself. And that's what I had to do out there. I had to put aside all the excuses, put aside all the blame, and really look at things. And I honestly believe that's why a lot of people, that process right there, it sucks and it hurts. And it gives you a whole different look of yourself. That doesn't mean you have to remain that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the shows like Alone, allow people that therapy they need. And I know now that it doesn't just help the person on the show, it helps a lot of people that are watching the show. And I never realized it as much until after I started receiving those letters and what have you. But you
Mm.
get in, you feel like the participants. Like I felt like I knew Jordan Jonas, and I felt like I knew Clay Hayes, and I felt like I knew Michelle, and it just that's what we do. We put our heart on a sleeve, we open our souls, we let
Mm-hmm.
everybody in, and we have no say in that. We just give you that opportunity, and you can do what you will with it
Mm-hmm.
because that's all we can do, and we're not getting anything back from you. At least that's what we think while we're out there. But I was gifted so many things by just the appreciation of knowing that I gave somebody the ability to have a little faith in themselves and try and heal themselves. Somebody that thought that they might just be able to go sit on a lake, walk in the woods or whatever, and feel that love and healing power of Mother Nature.
Well, and you're doing it now. These conversations are, important for it'll resonate with someone and it'll help someone out. And that's, what has helped me is listening to people share things that we really didn't have access to that. You're not that much older than me, but growing up,
Yeah.
we didn't have access to other than going to see a therapist. No one was talking about this type of
Right.
stuff.
Well,
And
yeah. And half the time it was, we don't need to talk about that. You don't need to know that. That
because
was
you're
a
weak,
common thing.
right?
Right. And, we talk about that. I got Justin Rain. He's a native actor, Canadian actor. He's actually from the Cree community up at Reindeer Lake. And the one thing he talked about was us growing up. Boys don't cry, men don't cry, whatever. Don't tell your children that. Allow them to cry, encourage them to cry. Because in a world where there's so much hurt, so much suicide, so much self harm, how are you going to ever help that child if you can't feel their pain? If you can't acknowledge and see it because they're hiding in a corner afraid to cry in front of you or whatever. When your kid cries, give them a hug and ask them what's wrong. Ask how you can help. Be there for them. But don't ever make them feel bad or ashamed.
Emotions are natural, and the healthy expressions of emotions are essential to the development of you as a person. And
Exactly.
I was mocked for crying. I didn't cry for many, many years as an adult because of that, and I
Right.
didn't.
And you see, and it, in me, it stemmed a lot of anger because you
Mhm.
had to release
You have to
emotion.
get it out somehow, and when you repress those
Right.
emotions, when you aren't allowed to express those emotions healthily in a healthy way, you suppress
Exactly.
them, and it comes out some way, one way or another.
That's right. And it we want it to be
It's
healthy.
often in
Y-
anger in men, right?
Yeah, and in my case it was. And you know, uh there was a lot of people that suffered the wrath of that anger for absolutely no reason. And if you're listening and you're one of them, I apologize because I was wrong.
Well, that's yeah. Well, thanks again for sharing that. So, day 64. Well, first of all, how has your life changed for the better since, understanding yourself at a deeper level?
I just feel good about so many. I don't even feel like the same person. You know what I mean? Like I'm the same, only
You're
different.
you're not the same.
And
You're a different person.
yeah, and but all for the better. There's no negatives came out of that. Uh, I just, people say to me all the time, uh, it's amazing all the good things you're doing, and oh, it's great you're doing all these good things for other people and stuff. That's funny. I was talking to a buddy of mine about it, and Aaron and I, we have a lot of deep conversation. And he showed me the reality of the fact that I'm not doing it for other people. I'm doing it for myself. It makes me feel good to help others, to do good things. Other people are just getting the benefits from it. It's just a win-win. But the bottom line is I'm doing it because it makes me feel good. I talk about that a lot. If you do something good for somebody, how does it make you feel? Good. If you do something bad for somebody, how does it make you feel? So why do that to yourself? You know, it's a simple, easy, and I've learned I was never a guy to beg. I almost taunted people to, give me that reason. Now I want no part of it. Have a nice day. Thank
Yep.
you. Smile and wave. You know, what good am I going to get out of a confrontation? Verbally, physically, doesn't matter. Because at the end of it, I feel bad.
And
Walk
you
away.
come to a realization that you're only hurting yourself when you hurt
Exactly.
someone else. So why hurt
Yeah,
yourself?
exactly. And it makes no sense to me. So,
Yeah.
I don't. And I, that's, you know, I've learned to appreciate so much more. I find myself taking pictures of trees that look a certain way because I want to show somebody. And
Mhm.
I, I just find myself seeing everything differently, and once again, all in positive things. I've always loved nature, but I'm almost like talking with her, walking with her. You know, I'm not just taking from her anymore on that level
Mhm.
that I used to
Mhm.
be a hunter, fisher, trapper, but I didn't have the appreciation. That's the best way to. Now I truly understand, and uh, I'm blessed because of it. And the more I can share that with people and encourage people to just go and try and find it. You know,
Mhm.
start with a simple thing like go and sit by a fire by yourself and watch the stars and watch the embers go up to the sky and just sit there and feel for a bit and
Mhm.
then try something different. And you don't have to be alone. But sometimes you do. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to go and share it because I love nothing more than sharing it with my children, my wife, my friends. The list goes on. can't wait to one day walk with my grandkids and be the grandpa my grandfather was, and those are, it's okay to share. It's a good thing. I encourage that too. But also take the time and just go and be true to yourself. That's the one thing I wasn't my whole life, was honest with myself. Forget about
Hmm.
how I was with everyone else. I wasn't honest with myself because one of the biggest things is that, well, it hurts. One thing I've learned is we all make mistakes and it's okay to. Just
Yeah.
don't make the same one again. Learn from it. And,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say that's the whole purpose of life is to learn, to
Yeah,
just become the
it's
best
an
version of
endless.
yourself. And yeah, it's a lifelong journey of learning. And that's what
I was
leads
doing
to,
it. Yeah, and it doesn't matter what it's learning. If it makes you feel good, if it's something that fills your soul, go. There's endless limits. Do it. There's no right or wrong, unless if it doesn't hurt anybody else or hurt yourself, then have at it. Enjoy
yeah.
it. You know,
Yeah. You mentioned on the show that, this was a competition with yourself. You're not competing against the other participants. And I think that's the absolute right attitude. Um, you ended up coming in second. You left on day 64. And I think you are, but I hope you're proud of your accomplishments. You should
oh,
be,
immensely.
because yeah,
I have no regrets, Ryan. Like none. Um, every single one of us went out there to win. I will never tell you any different. I fully intended on winning. Like I was, and I didn't spend 64 days out there just to throw up my arms and say I'm out here. I knew I was close. I knew what it was like out there. And at one point, I said, Mikey, brother, if I knew it was just me and you out here, I'd tap, because I know that 500 grand would make your life a lot different than mine. My house is paid for. My kids are growing up. He's got a young autistic son and he's a young man himself. I said, but I don't know that, Mikey, so I'm not tapping. and, you know, um, I woke up that morning and the sun was coming up and it was just beautiful. I hadn't slept in 4 days. Couldn't get warm again. Um, I couldn't get full. At that point, I'd had 4 shelter fires. Um, the night I pulled my toenail off, uh, they didn't show, but I lifted every other one. I could have just went like this and plucked everything. I hadn't felt my feet in weeks. Uh, I had 12 rocks that were about this big that I would put in my fire. And when I go to sleep, I would put two at my feet, two at my midsection, and two up under my arms. And then
mm,
about every 2 hours when I woke up to restock my fire, I would take those 6 out, put them in the fire, take the other 6 out of the edge of the fire and put them in. Worked great for weeks and weeks and weeks. It just radiates through my body. The last 4 nights, the only spot that would get warm was where they were. There was no radiation through the body anymore. I laid there all night rolling those hot rocks all over my body, just trying to get, and I couldn't do it. It just, and I was still staying good mentally, but my body was really starting to show signs of, and the sleep thing getting to me again.
mm,
Just need to get warm. That morning, after I kind of showed everybody the sunset and what have you, or sunrise, I shut the cameras off and I went for a walk. Just me, and just contemplating, am I going to be good with this? Like, you have not done this. Walk away with a regret. Like, you've come too far, man. So don't. And and it was once again, I believe, um, Mother Nature, um, guided me through that. The spirits, whichever. I do believe in, uh, the spirits, and what I don't believe in God. I don't believe in heaven and hell, but I believe in a far greater existence, and I don't know what it is. I could be wrong in saying what it. Don't ask me because I don't know. but I know there's something, and I can
Mhm.
feel it, and I have felt it, and I've witnessed it. So when I come back, I ate 3 big pieces of fish. I burnt every piece of firewood I had. I had a great big bonfire
I,
going.
I noticed that.
I was just trying to get warm. Just give me one more shot. Just, and it wasn't there. And about 1:30, the phone, and I have not had a regretful moment. I I was done. I was the first guy when Alan stepped off the helicopter to shake his hand and give him a hug and tell him how terrible he looked. And he didn't recognize me. I looked that much, and the only reason I knew it was Alan was because when I tapped, they said, I said, so when are you going to pick up Alan? And they said, what do you mean, Alan? I said, when are you going to pick up Alan? And they said, how do you know it's Alan? Or why do you think it's Alan? I said, I don't think it's Alan. I said, I know it's Alan. How do you know that? I said, because Mikey's standing right here with me. And I said, he's the only other guy other than these 2 guys standing right here that we're going to win this year. They go, how do you? I said, you can tell. They said, what about Lee? What about Luke? I said, it's Alan. Don't even, it's Alan. And they were just, the helicopter flew out that morning. They said, do you mind meeting the winner when we bring them back? I said, you want me to come and congratulate Alan? And they just laughed at me. Said, yeah, I'll be down there. And sure as shit, it was Alan coming off. And it was just like, I just knew, there was no question in my mind that it was Alan. And I couldn't have lost to a better man. Alan is a great man and a great survivalist and a great, just everything about him is good. And we gave her our all. Him and I got to spend a bunch of days afterwards together in rehab, and we talked a lot. We still talk a lot. We're going fishing in May here down in Wyoming with Cade and Jody and a couple others, and
Mm.
Taz. And then Alan and I are going to take off pickerel and pike fishing here somewhere in Ontario. And when you look, he went into the show as the man I became after, if that makes any sense to you.
Mhm.
He's a school teacher. He's got a great moral compass. He's got a great heart. He's a great father. Um, like us all, he's made his mistakes, but he wasn't carrying a lot of demons with him.
Mhm.
He was pretty content with his life, and rightfully so. And I talk about like him releasing that duck and that martin and what have you. And it's just integrity of being fair play and a good person. It,
Yeah, he didn't have to
it
show that. Right.
no, that's it. And I said to a few people, Ryan, I don't know if I would have. I might have shut that camera off and had duck for dinner that night. And but I wouldn't now because of
Yeah.
what he taught me. And that's it. We all learned something from each other. And Mikey talking about one time he says, all you parents out there to tell your kids, just go be quiet. Don't do that. Because there's some of us parents out there that just love to hear our children say something,
Mhm.
and it's all in how we look at things and, put things in perspective. I used to feel bad because I had no shoes till I met a man with no feet, and there's always somebody got it worse, and
Yeah, exactly. How long from when well, first of all, how long did it take him to come get you once you called? And then how
hours.
long
I was freezing, and it was weird because I'm going to say it took about 3 hours for him to get there.
okay.
And that was just because the helicopter was in use. They had to get it's all about the show too, right? Like that's the one thing, like, no matter what, it's still all about the show. And until they had the cameraman and everything, because they were it was getting late. They knew there was only 2 of us left. They were getting materials out of there, and the helicopter just wasn't in the vicinity. So
Mm.
I had to wait, and uh, it just seemed like forever because once I made the decision to tap, I just wanted to get the hell out of there and have something to eat.
Yeah, you want
And
them there
me,
instantly, and it's not instant.
yeah, and worst part was is like they don't feed you for days. The refeeding program. My first meal was a thing of bone broth and 10,
Yeah.
10, 10 almonds and five dried apricots. That was. I'm like, are you kidding? Where's my steak, my pizza, my wings?
Oh man, they wouldn't even let you gorge on a
But
steak.
I didn't
Yeah.
even get a coffee for like 5 days. And they're great. Like the quality of the food. My hats off to those ladies that were doing that. They looked after you every way. Like and the quality was great. There just wasn't enough of it, but for a very good purpose. And it was. I'm telling. I was eating more than that out there. Come on, give me something to eat. But to get the carbs and the sugars and everything back into you, it's a very, it sends your body into shock. And they gave me
Yeah.
all these pamphlets on refeeding and why they're doing it. And you know, just bear with them. And they, there was a few times where, might have got a little snappy and like, hey, just bring me something to eat, but they were very good and very tolerant. And uh, it was,
And that
it was good.
and then it took some time for them to go get Alan, right? Because they had to get
They
his,
had
I
to
think,
fly his
was it his
wife in.
wife? Yeah, so they have
Yeah,
to get her.
so they flew Lisa in on. So I tapped day 64. They flew Lisa in day 65. Day 66, they picked up Alan.
two two extra days waiting out there. Although, of course, he
Well,
didn't
he didn't
know.
know he'd won though.
Yeah, of course,
So he
but
was still
yeah,
going to be toughing it out, and that's what
yeah,
I say. People say, "Oh, they made it look like he was done right out," and like he may have been done, but I I believe things happen for a reason, And the bottom line is, yes, he was done, but he was still hanging on. And I wasn't. I was done. I had tapped, and there's no other, I'll never
mhm,
make an excuse or anything else. I was done, and that's why I'm proud about it. I gave everything I had. I know there was nothing left to give, and I'm good with it. It sucks, but
well,
I'm good with
and
it.
you should be, and I don't, like I said, I didn't get the sense that you were disappointed
Yeah,
in anything, so I'm glad that that's the case.
me too. Me too. I got to meet some wonderful people, see some beautiful land, and I got to meet the true Wyatt.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
like I said, that's beautiful. Well, and then what? So you were there several days. Uh,
Yeah, we were there 11 days. So I was there 11, Alan was there 9, and then we spent 2 days in Saskatchewan uh, because the weather was so bad we couldn't get our flights home. So
mm,
that worked out okay. Alan and I went out for pizza and wings on the first night there and just got to be normal again, And
yeah,
then on the second night, we hit an all you could eat buffet that they didn't make any money on us. I'll tell you.
that's good. And then, of course, you went home and reunited with everyone.
Yeah. The hardest part was keeping quiet. Like my kids didn't even know that I didn't win until the last episode.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, I didn't tell anybody. And so I was doing a thing in conjunction with Chuck's Roadhouse here in Bracebridge that I would go and watch the show there a certain amount of the nights, and anybody that was going to watch it there bring a non-perishable food items. If you're going to come and watch us starve, help our local community, and let's support our food bank, which was
Mhm.
awesome. We raised over 500 pounds of food and got some cash. A couple of people, donate $100 here and there, and it was pretty awesome. But the last night, there's like 200 people there,
Mm.
and because there's no way he lost because who's going to host a party? Everybody just like, he's won. There's no question why it's won. It's on the last day. Everybody knows. Then Mikey tapped, and everybody's like, and then I tapped, and the whole place just went. you could have heard a pin drop. And I'm the only one standing there smiling, and everyone else. And then and then the place just went nuts with applause and congratulations. My two sons gave me a hug and love you, Dad, and proud of you. You know, everybody was very good with, they were almost, I don't, and I have to understand the fact that I've already adjusted to this. I didn't, for a long time now. These people have been sitting here for the last 8 months thinking I want, or whatever it was.
Oh, was
And
that long, huh?
yeah, well, we come out, no, November 17th was my last day, and it aired in, when did it start airing, or June, May, end of May, or the 1st of June, or something like that. So it was like August before it finished. So yeah,
No. That's a
yeah,
long time to keep quiet.
it was, and but it was, it was fun, and like I said, I would recommend that experience to anybody, uh, and it doesn't have to be on alone.
Yeah.
Take 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be a starve fest. It doesn't have to be, but just take a week, 2 weeks, and just go and enjoy what Mother Nature has to offer.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be. Take a tent. Take a book of matches. Take some food. But also take a couple books and go and learn and take a fishing rod and just go out and to enjoy it and learn to appreciate it. It'll do you good.
Well, thanks again for the conversation. I really enjoyed it. It's been great. Great to meet you. And yeah, just
Bless you.
appreciate you. Thank you. Sorry, I got a tickle in my
No
throat.
worries. It's been an absolute pleasure, Ryan. And I I do a fair bunch of these, and I love I'm not the guy to go and start my own YouTube or that. It's just not my cards. But I do like getting the word out there, and I'm heading down to a high school tomorrow to teach 2 outdoor education classes. And I've been back out to Saskatchewan twice to speak to the Cree people and what have you. Those are the things I'd rather go and speak in person and answer the questions and teach a kid how to light a fire than I would to have a YouTube channel, type thing. So I
Yeah.
kind of live vicariously through you guys on that element. It's great because it does get my name out there, and a lot of people do contact me after these and show their appreciation, and I love it. Uh, it's one of those things where there's so many bad things in this world where it's so easy to be good. So just do it. Um, how hard is it to smile and make somebody feel good? I remember one time uh, I was down taking my son to a hockey tournament, and he was just starting high school, and we went to an outlet mall, and I've always been one of those ones where I don't wear designer clothes, and I don't, and so my kids didn't, but he was going to high school, and I know what it's like for kids to be picked on. Okay, kid, you got this much money, take you to Tommy Hilfiger and all these other little stores that, and this is your money. I don't care how you spend it, what you spend it on, but this is all you're getting. And so we went
Mm.
shopping. Every time we went up to the cashier, how are you today, sir? A lot better now that I've seen your pretty face. And they would smile and, oh, you're so sweet. After about 6 or 8 times of that, my son says to me, Dad, are you going to say that to everybody? I said, yeah, I am. I said, because they don't know me. I said, and it makes them feel good and it costs me nothing. So why?
Exactly.
I said, it's just an easy thing to do. And, you know, people need to take that approach on so many other things, where it's the same thing I said earlier. It makes me feel good. So I
Yeah.
do it.
Well, what you
Oh,
put out there comes back
yeah.
to you. So,
That's my wife just pulled in. So
oh,
my dogs are going to go nuts here again
uh,
for a second.
no
Another
worries.
editing process.
I'll let you go. But like I said, really enjoyed the conversation and
You,
getting to know you.
no, actually, Alan and I, I did have you heard of uh, the whiskey fireside chat? So I did one with I did a whiskey fireside chat, and I'd done one called Canoe Hounds. And the guy who runs the whiskey fireside chat, he reached out to me and asked me if I'd do one with him. And I said, I'll do one with you on one condition. I said, I invite Mikey and Alan, and the three of us do it together. And you put out a shout out to raise some money on the GoFundMe for Mikey. So we
Well,
did one
I
on
would do that as well. That'd be great.
yeah, we did one on that, and it raised a few extra bucks on his GoFundMe. I think last I looked, he was up to about 115,000 US. So that's great, and his son's starting to speak now. It's created so much awareness to autism, and it's been able to benefit like Mike. He gets in before he had to work every hour, and that just to so it was great to have that kind of influence and that kind of response. So I'll definitely reach out to him. And Alan's great. He's a great conversationalist and all the rest of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about his story as well. So
Yeah, and he's another. That thing with the owl, like none of the other 10 of us seen an owl, and he talks
yeah.
about the significance of his father and the spirit of the owl and what have you. And
Mm.
not only to have an owl show up out there when no one else did, but to have it hang around him and pester him like it did. It just the way everything went, it was kind of made us all truly believe that Alan's dad was with him out there. It
Mm.
was, a lot of people can talk about how things like that make you feel, but it makes you feel good. And there's nothing wrong with having something to believe in. And it doesn't matter whether it's true or not, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody and it makes you feel good, enjoy it and believe it, because like I said, there is something greater than us out there. I just don't know
Mm.
what it is.
No one does.
No, that's it.
People, think they do or will say they do, but no one
I, I've
does.
really, I've really been spending a lot of time with the indigenous people of Canada, and I think they're closer to it than anybody. And I learned I've been appreciating the learnings and the teachings I'm getting from them, and I feel far more in touch with I'd just say the spirit world, and
And that's all that matters, whatever resonates mostly with you.
that's it. That's it. And that's what we need to teach everybody is it's okay to be different, and it's okay that, just do it and enjoy it and see
Not
what
only
happens.
is it okay, it's essential to be your authentic self, to be the best version of yourself.
It's one of my favorite sayings. I say all the time, if you're not yourself, who the fuck are you? Yeah. So,
I
well, I look forward to seeing this, and thank you again, sir. It was a pleasure.